I am so glad to be here this morning, and I'm super excited about our topic, words. And my job this morning is to talk about how can we use words to build our relationships? How can we understand the key people in our life, their unique personalities, and their temperaments, and then how to meet the needs that each of them has. Now, I have been studying the temperaments for a long time. I married a man who taught the temperaments, so we were our own little experiment when we were dating. We used the words of temperaments quite often. And then when we got married, I brought 2 kids to the marriage. He brought 2 kids to the marriage. And of the 4 temperaments, we had everybody covered. Let me show you some of our experiments that we've had over the years. Okay, all the way to your left, that is Jeremy. Jeremy is our peaceful green. And if you're like, why is she talking in colors? Okay, so we've been working out of this book, I Said This, You Heard That, by Kathi for the past several weeks. And so we've been talking about the temperaments, and green is that peaceful personality, that amiable personality. And so he is good no matter what. Jeremy is always cool. Anytime you ask him how something is going, it is cool. The only time Jeremy is not cool is when you're asking him to make a decision. One of the things that I want to get him for Christmas this year is a set of dice. One of them has a chicken, a slice of beef, a fish on it. The other one has different ethnic food choices. And then we could just roll them together so Jeremy never has to make a decision again about where we go to eat. It's too much pressure for him. Next to him, the bride in this picture, and by the way, this picture is 4 years old, but everybody in my family looks semi-normal at the same time, so we're sticking with it. Yellow is Amanda, our bride, and she is that excited yellow personality. And you know how she was excited? I knew it by this. She loves to have fun. She loves to embrace just the fun side of life. And when they planned their wedding, the thing she was most excited about, of course she was excited about the dress and, marrying her husband, blah, blah, blah. But what she was really excited about was between the ceremony and the reception, they set up giant game boards all over the estate where they were getting married. So there was giant Jenga and cornhole, and she thought everybody could play games while they took their pictures. And she was more excited about that than I think she was the actual wedding. Okay, Kimber. Kimber is the girl in the blue dress. That's my daughter. And she is our driving red. And so how I knew that her spiritual gift was bossiness from a young age. And I'm not saying all reds are bossy, but I'm just saying that is one way they can lean. But she uses it for good now. She bosses people around at Apple for a living. But when she was a little girl, I used to take her to ballet lessons. Now, in my generation, and tell me if this vibes with any of you, when my mom took me to an activity, she dropped me off. And because she was paying for an hour to get me out of her hair. Does anybody else remember being dropped off at an activity without your parents supervising you? Well, apparently that's not what you do anymore. You pay to take them to a class and then you sit there and watch them, because I was the only bad mom who's like, I'm hitting Safeway so my family can eat tonight. Well, they asked us to all be there for the dress rehearsal. And so I attended for the dress rehearsal, and I was stunned. My daughter was bossing all the other little ballerinas around. She was telling them where to stand. No, scooch over. And she was moving them around. And I was like, I am mortified. And all the other moms said, she does it every week. Okay, I know how you feel about us. I got it. So I said, Kimberly, come over here. Come over here. Come here. No. And she came over. I said, Kimberly, you cannot tell the other girls where to stand. She says, Mom, the teacher won't, and somebody has to. I'm glad she uses her powers for good and not evil. And Justin, the one all the way to the right, that is my analytic blue. He is the perfect blue. His main goal in life is to win strategy board games. He has a job just so he can afford more games. And by the way, he knows all the rules to the game and will point out exactly when you are breaking them, even if you've never played the game before, because he knows everything. Our kids have such strong personalities. And Roger and I have been studying this for so long. And by the way, when I say I've been studying this, the person that Kathleen Edelman learned everything from was Florence Littauer. And I sat under her teaching personally for years to understand the temperaments and the personalities. So I feel like I kind of have this down. But our kids were easy to figure out, to categorize, because they are what we would consider NTRs. They are called no test required. Like, you spend 10 minutes in a room with them, you know exactly who they were. And by the way, that groom in that picture, that's Sean. That's my son-in-law. And he is one of those peaceful, green, phlegmatic people. He has no chance in our game-loving, bloodlust over games, puzzles, or a blood sport kind of family. We just pray for him a lot. So I thought I had this down. I've used the temperaments in my business and my ministry. I know the temperaments of the key leaders in my ministry. My friend Tanya, who is one of the key leaders in our business, I know her temperament because I want to learn to better communicate with her. I've known this in my marriage. Not only have the temperaments made me love my husband better, they've made me like my husband better. I have got these down. I kind of almost feel like I am an expert in the temperaments. And then last Friday, my in-laws came to town. And everything went out the window. Let me just tell you, I was not acting in my best self. I was not using my wisdom. But let me set the scenario for you before you judge me too harshly. We have a retreat center up in the El Dorado Hills where we train writers. And we had 8 women coming from around the country to go to what we call the Red House for a week of writers training. Now, there was only one problem with this situation, and if you've been watching the weather reports, you know what it is. Normally at our house, we get 1 to 4 inches a year. We had 4 feet of snow that we had to, when we got there to evaluate the situation, it was actually kind of dangerous. And at one point, not only did we have to hike to the house from very far away, we had to hike back to the car that we had to spend 6 hours let me just say, I was not shoveling snow. I don't do snow. I said I take care of the inside of the house. He takes care of the outside of the house. But we had to get our cat and our dog back up the hill. Can I just tell you, when a puggle doesn't want to walk through snow, it goes like this. And it was just a bad situation. So we told all these women coming from around the country, with less than a day's notice, we are not doing the Writers' Retreat in the El Dorado Hills up towards Tahoe. We are doing it in our townhouse, our 1,400 square foot townhouse in San Jose, California. And we labeled it an urban writing adventure. What else are you going to do in those circumstances, right? So for 6 days, we have 8 women, plus me and my husband. Can we all just take a moment of silence for Roger at this point? Living in our house for 6 days. The turnaround for having Roger's family come was this. The women took our car to the Sacramento airport where they were flying in because they thought they were going more towards Tahoe. They turned around. Roger's brothers drove our car back. That's the amount of time we had to get ready for them to come. And let me just say, it was stressful. Now, I want to say up front, and it's very important you know this, I love Roger's family. I want to share a picture of Roger and his brothers. So if we go from right to left, on the right is Rick. He is our green, amiable, peaceful guy. He loves the outdoors. Whatever decision is made, he goes along with it. Just the most peaceful person on the planet. Then I have my husband, Roger, who is our super analytic blue, and pretty much his job that week was to make sure I didn't melt down. I have to say, you failed, baby. Randy, the oldest, is the leader and the red of all the brothers. And all week, Randy kept saying, I'm going to end up as a sermon illustration, aren't I? Randy, this is for you. Okay, Randy is, like I said, I love Roger's brothers, but my goal as a yellow was to make sure that everybody was having a good time, including Randy's wife, Debbie, who was there. Randy's goal the whole time, being a red, was to be in control. He needed to be in control. We go to see them in Georgia all the time, and he's always in control of the situation. But you know what is the most difficult situation for someone who wants to be in control? To live in somebody else's house and to have the largest snowstorm in at least 20 years change all of your plans. And you know what the most difficult thing is for someone who just wants everyone to have fun? To try to help someone who wants to be in control, but a 20-year snowstorm has changed all of their plans. Have fun. And we kept butting heads all weekend. I felt like everything I did wasn't good enough. He would say, why are we doing it this way? We need to be doing it this way. And I was exhausted, and I wasn't working the temperaments the way I should. And I felt criticized and picked on by Roger's brother for not making sure that everything was perfectly planned, even though all the plans always had to change. And that's when it happened. It's what my husband and now my family refer to lovingly as Cheesegate. When our family got here, they wanted to go to Costco to pick up a few things that they just loved. So we did that. And the next day, we were going for a picnic. And Roger's brother Randy asked, did someone pack the cheese and crackers? And I was so proud of myself because I was on top of it because he wanted to make sure that we were go, go, go. And I had already packed up. I bought these really fancy cheeses, the really expensive ones at Costco. And I'd done crackers and charcuterie. And it was gorgeous. It was a beautiful little basket of yummy. And so we get to the picnic, and Randy grabs the cooler and he opens it up. And he said, where's my cheese? Okay, I didn't know he had a cheese. I didn't know it was for the picnic. And he said, I can't believe you didn't pack my cheese. Thank you. Whoever just said that, you feel my pain. And said, after a very long 21 hours, yes, I was counting, and a long list of everything I had done wrong, I yelled for many a tourist in Northern California to hear, you are a grown man! Pack your own cheese! Let's just say there wasn't a lot of Jesus dripping from me at that point. I may have scared my entire family and some innocent bystanders at that point. From that point on, Roger lovingly said, Kathi, I think we should discuss matters. And so that night we started to talk through what we knew about the personalities, what we knew about Randy, what we knew about me, what we knew about, by the way, everybody else is just the chill, go along, get along with everybody. And I'm like, I needed somebody else to be angry at that point, and nobody was stepping up. And what we figured out is we needed to understand how to meet Randy's needs and my needs at the same time. What Randy needed to know was that I wasn't trying to control him. And at no point did I feel like I was trying to do that, but that's how it came across to him. He also needed to know that there was a plan, and he needed to be in control of the plan. I was like, I'm just coming off 6 days of 8 people living in my house. We'll make it up as we go along. That is not okay for somebody who's out of their environment and out of control. But what I needed was him to know that he wasn't allowed to expect to control me or my plans. We needed to get those things fundamentally understood. So what I learned was, instead of saying, we can just play it by ear when we get there, which was his nightmare, or here's what I've got planned for us, Roger and I came up with options. You guys can go to Fire and Ice because we were spending some time in Tahoe, or you can join us at Blue Dog Pizza. Either is fine with us. So Roger and I could have our own plans, but we could also say whatever you guys want to do is totally fine with us. We're okay with it. And we were able to give the information, but Randy was able to make the decision. At the end of the week, we ended up getting along really, really well and having a really great time. And there was one thing that we could all agree on. I married the right brother. And the moral of the story is, if you don't want to be a sermon illustration, pack your own cheese. Okay. So I want to talk about how do we translate what are two good people who are trying to do the right thing but keep missing and getting into places of unhealthy communication. How do you turn that around? And so I want to talk about our healthy relationship goals. And I want you to know, it's important to note that you cannot spend time researching and understanding the temperament of everybody in your life. You just can't do it. You have to think about those primary relationships in your life, the people that you need to invest in, that God has called you to invest in. And so think about these people: your best friend, your spouse, your mom or dad, your child, your boss. And there may be other ones I'm missing, but these are the primary relationships. It is so important to always honor other people with our words, but we can't do the investment with everybody that we come across. And eventually you'll start to realize, oh, I think that person may be a red, or I think we got a little yellow going on here, and you'll be able to adjust accordingly. But just as you're learning through the temperaments and the videos and all of that, focus on the primary people in your life. We've been working with a contractor for the past several months, and he and Roger in some ways have some similar temperaments. I'm invested in Roger. The outcome I want with Roger is I want him to go out into the world knowing that his wife is cheering him on, knowing that he is deeply understood by me and appreciated by me, and that I'm meeting his needs. With my contractor, I want my shower to work. We have different objectives in these relationships, and that's okay. My contractor's wife and mom can make sure that he has all the loves. So it's okay to understand that you don't have to do this for absolutely everybody in your life. You just need to make sure that your primary people, you understand their unique personalities and their needs so that you can move forward in that relationship. As we go through the next few ideas, here's what I want you to do. I want you to picture somebody in your head that is important to you. Maybe it's somebody that God has placed in your life, like a spouse or a child. Or maybe it's somebody you sought out. It is a friend or somebody that you work with. I want you to think of that primary relationship. And I want you, as we're going through these questions, to think about that person in the light of these questions and how you could be a better communicator with that person. So our goal is to speak helpful words that build people up according to their needs. That's it. We want to speak helpful words that build people up according to their needs. Now, in relationships, I already know what my needs are. I know what I need. I innately feel it even if I can't verbalize it. So for me, as a yellow, I need to know that you are having fun in our relationship and we're having a good time. Now, if you are a blue, you need to know things like you've made the right decision. That's important. But really, there's an underlying thing. Those are our temporary needs, but our long-lasting needs are for peace, joy, and life. So as we start to communicate in these healthy, God-affirming ways, not only do we meet those small needs temporarily, but what we're doing is we're meeting our deeper soul needs in our communication. And so as much as we need to get our needs met, we are key in getting other people's needs met and being in that relationship with them. So I want you to picture that primary relationship. Has everybody picked who they are going to be thinking of? Let me raise your hand if you've picked the person who is the object. Okay, some of you are behind. Okay, you may be green at this point because you can't decide. Pick the person closest in proximity to you, and if somebody just nudged you like happened right here, that's your person. Okay, number one. I want you to think about this person and say this to them in your head. I commit to building healthy, God-honoring relationship with you by, 1, understanding the depth of your temperament and needs. The first part of Ephesians 4:29, which is our main text for today, says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs." So this doesn't mean we are just avoiding words that hurt, but it means that we are purposely seeking out words that heal and build up. So how do you understand somebody else's temperament if they're not in the no test required category? So here's what the first thing I would say is, ask them if they take the test. If you're trying to understand what their temperament is, I would be honored if somebody says, Kathi, I want to learn how to love you better. I want to learn how to communicate with you better. Would you be willing to take a test? I know that seems like a weird thing, and you may not want to do that with your boss, although I think this is incredibly helpful in the workplace. But if you think somebody would be open to it, I think having the test results and learning to speak their language is a huge gift to somebody. Or two, you can observe their temperament and needs. You can observe who they are, and you can get clues. If you've studied this book long enough, and it doesn't take very long, you can start to see your people falling into different categories. It really is a helpful guide to understanding the temperaments and understanding what somebody's needs are. Or the third thing that you can do is start to test out some language on the people you love. So if you say to somebody, man, whenever I'm with you, the fun level rises, and they get a big smile on their face, they may be a yellow. If you say, I just love it when you drive because I can just sit back and relax, that may be a red who wants to be in control. If you say to somebody, you know what, whenever I hang out with you, I'm just so comfortable, and the big smile breaks on their face, that may be our green, peaceful person. Or for our blue, if you say that you're always right and their fist pumps in the air, then that may be a blue. Just test the language out on them to see what they respond to. Okay, number 2 is understanding their needs. What does each temperament need to hear? So not only do we understand what their temperament is, but we also understand what their needs are. So first we understand their temperament, and then we understand their needs. When we can understand their temperament and what they need to hear, it is such a powerful combination. I love Timothy Keller, and he's got this quote from a book called The Meaning of Marriage. To be loved but not known, so that means to have your needs met, but not have an understanding of that person's temperament, is comforting but superficial. So if I'm just meeting somebody's needs and just giving them what they need, that's comforting but superficial. To be known, so to understand somebody's temperament and not loved but not meet their needs, is our greatest fear. But to be fully known and truly loved is, well, a lot like being loved by God. Is what we need more than anything else. It liberates us from pretenses, humbles us out of our self-righteousness, and fortifies us in any difficulty life can throw at us. So not only understanding our temperament and our personalities, but also meeting the needs of those unique temperaments and personalities. It means that we are known and loved. And that is the greatest thing that we can experience together as fellow human beings, to be fully known and to be fully loved. We need to fully understand who these key people, these primary people are, and what their needs are. And when we can meet those, it takes our relationship to a different level. Okay, so the second thing I need to do in order to promote a God-honoring relationship is to value your uniqueness. Which means I'm not trying to change you, but intentionally speak words that give you life. That's what I'm going to do for you, that person I'm picturing. So there's an underlying fallacy that if you just loved God enough, if you were just healthy enough, if you just did all the right things, you wouldn't need me to speak these words to you. You wouldn't need all this flattery and love and all that kind of stuff. And I think that that is ridiculous. God has wired us to need each other and wired us to need encouragement for each other. The New Testament is covered with saying we need to encourage one another. And why not take the extra step to encourage somebody in some way that will actually feed their soul? Why do we want to do it on our terms when we can discover who that person is and give them words that will bring them life? So as a yellow, how many of you, that person you pictured, you think they are probably an excited yellow that you are trying to speak words to? Okay, we've got a couple here. You know, the yellow needs some love. Can I just say, I saw like 3 hands go up. We need more love than that. So I'm just putting it out there. You think we don't, but we really do. Okay, a yellow needs to hear the language of fun and excitement. That's what they need to hear. A red needs to hear the language of drive and control. A green needs to hear the language of no pressure and harmony. And a blue needs to hear the language of order and precision. Next, okay, you've got some blank space under those fill-ins you just had. I want you to think about that person and what color they are and what is something that you could say to them that would bring them life. Now, if you were talking to a yellow, one of the things you could say to them is, "You make my life more fun." If you could say that to a yellow, that's everything. That's Christmas to them. That's absolutely everything they need. A red, you could say, "Why don't you take over part of the planning for X?" Okay, that's everything. Like, I trust you so much, I want you to take control of this section of what we're doing. Green, don't worry about it, we're not in a rush. Anytime you can take the pressure off of a green, you are speaking love to them. And blue, all you have to say is, "You were right. You were right." That's all you have to say. Now, when I said this in the first service, that whole back row was blues, and they were like, "Yes!" And then one of them came up to me and said, "You were wrong." And I'm like, "Of course I was. Please educate me." He goes, "I don't just need you to know that I was right. I need you to know that I was right all along." And I'm like, okay, I'm putting it in the sermon, so all the blues will not be unhappy with me, but they probably will. It's okay. I still feel loved by blues. Blues are my favorite people. My mom is a blue, my husband is a blue, my kid is a blue. I love the blues. So, but I will never get everything 100% right. That's okay, because you know what? They will, and I can just trust them with it. It's all good. Okay, now, let's go back to our 1, 2, 3, 4, how I can commit to you to building a God-honoring relationship. Number 3, I'm committing to strengthen and mature our relationship by speaking the truth in love. And you know what? Lots of Christians are really great at speaking truth, but they forgot the in love part. Because if I'm going to tell you a hard truth, I can't just come at you with it with full barrels blasting. I have to be able to say, I have to reflect how this is going to make you feel. If you go on in Ephesians 4 and you get to verse 31, it says, "Get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice." I may have to say hard things to you, but I always, always, always have a choice in how I say them. I can always lead with love. I don't need to tell others before I tell you. I don't need to stew and become bitter. I don't need to put it on Facebook and thinly veil it so everybody knows who I'm talking to. And I don't need to raise my voice, and I don't need to be passive aggressive. I can talk to you with hard things with real love, and I can do it in a way that honors God. And number 4, recognizing my own health and renegotiating depleting relationships. Here's the thing in the body of Christ. You will have healthy relationships where you give and you take, and you get filled up and you pour out. And that's what most of our relationships should look like. But God is also going to call you to some of those draining relationships. And in the world, you would be told you need to have good boundaries and you need to get rid of those draining relationships. But what if that draining relationship is your kid? Or what if that draining relationship is your boss? What if that draining relationship is your parent? Then here is what you need to do. 1, you need to recognize that it is a draining relationship. And as much as we feel like it shouldn't be, it just is. And it's okay to understand and acknowledge that. In verse 32, as we go on, "Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ forgave you." And it says, be this with each other. So you know who part of that other is you. That this is an expectation that we can expect from the healthy relationships in our life. And that means that sometimes we need to have good boundaries. And as much as we have draining people in our lives, we also need to make sure that we are taking good care of ourselves and filling ourselves up with other relationships that are a community of relationships. In her forthcoming book, my best friend Sherry Gregory, the book is called Exhale, and she shares the story of a family trip she did many, many years ago. She was with her extended family, and her nephew brought along a friend, we'll call him John. And as soon as they got to the cabin in the Tahoe area, John said, I need to call a family meeting, which was kind of weird because he wasn't part of the family. But everybody's like, okay, John, we are here for you. So John said, what I need you to know, and by the way, John is like 10 or 11 at this time, and he's calling the family meeting. He says, here's what I need you to know. I have a severe peanut allergy. In fact, if I eat peanuts, I could go into anaphylactic shock and die. So here's what I need you to do. My mom has researched where the closest hospital is. Who here drives? And so all the adults raised their hand, and he handed out a map to each one of them and said, this is the fastest route to the emergency room in case something happens. I also have an EpiPen. I'm going to carry one with me always, but I also have one in my suitcase, and I'm going to give you a demonstration now on how it needs to be administered. I'm like, whoa, John has got it going on. And then finally, he says, and this is my jar of jam. And it was a little jar of strawberry jam, and it had a label on it with a skull and crossbones. And it says, John's jam, do not touch under penalty of death. Because the most likely way that John was going to encounter a peanut on that trip was by somebody dipping into the peanut butter jar and then dipping into a jam jar and him not knowing it. And so he put that, he says, please, 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 my life depends on nobody using this jar of jam. And I just thought, man, John has so much to teach us all about how to take care of ourselves, how to take care of our own health. Because so many times I have not wanted to lay down boundaries. I haven't wanted to lay down laws because I felt like it would be inconvenient for everybody else. You know what the most inconvenient thing that happened on there? You had to move John's jam jar in order to get to your jam. That was it. And so I have learned recently, just recently, a phrase that has helped me so much when I am struggling, when my personality is having a hard time getting along, and I need help from the people around me. I don't need to sit anybody down for a family meeting, but this is the phrase that I can say, and I can get my needs met in a crisis. Right now, I need you to blank. It is a magical phrase because what it says is, I don't need this for the rest of my life, but right now, and I'm saying my need, and it's not going to be a huge need, but there's just something I need from you. My husband is an analytic blue, and sometimes I'll say, right now, I just need you to be excited for me. And he'll say, I am excited for you. And I'll say, could you tell your face? That would be super helpful at this point. So as a yellow, sometimes I just need people to woo with me. When I was getting an agent, I had the #1 agent in the Christian industry say that he wanted to represent me. Yay! But then I realized I needed somebody to woo with me. When things were happening, woo! And so I chose a different agent. It turns out she is totally not a wooer, but she fakes it on my behalf. When I was struggling with this talk just the other day, Scott and I share an app called Voxer. It's kind of a walkie-talkie for your phone. And he knew I was struggling because I had my in-laws there and things were happening and snow and all this kind of stuff. And we did our last exchange before I was taking the family to go do something and he needed to get on the road. And his last message to me was, Kathi, Sunday is going to be amazing. I'm so excited for you. I can't wait to see the video when it's all done. You're going to have an amazing Sunday. Now, he was lying, I'm sure, but that's okay. Because that's exactly what I needed at the moment. I needed somebody to be excited for me. A little while later, Roger tried it. It just didn't work. There is nothing sadder than a blue trying to be a yellow. There really isn't. But can I just tell you, I so appreciated the effort. Right now, over this tiny little area, I need you to let me be in control. Reds, you have permission to say that. Right now, I need you to not pressure me for an answer. Greens, you have permission to say that. And my blues, right now, I need you to let me do it my way. You have permission. It's okay to ask the people around you for what you need when you need it. And it's okay to carry your own jam jar. And when it's needed, ask for what you need. And if you can't get your needs met by that person, that may not be a healthy person right now. And you may need to go and connect with another friend or another person in your relationships. Some relationships we've been called to because there's a need, and we're the ones to fill that need. And other relationships are healthy relationships. We can connect together. If you are working hard at being kind, tenderhearted, forgiving in that primary relationship, and that is not being reciprocated, it's time to renegotiate that relationship. See it as the mission God has been given to you, and don't look for your needs to be met in that place. But get your needs met someplace, somebody who understands your language and wants to speak it to you. Because here's the thing, we are not weak for needing relationship. God has created us for relationship. Would you pray with me? Father, thank you so much for just that we are wonderfully and uniquely made in your image. And that each of these temperaments represents the best that you have in each of us. God, I pray that we can better understand each other. And as we better understand each other and we learn to do this relationship thing right, that we better understand the love that you have for each and every one of us. God, we are so grateful to be a part of your family. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.